The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 321, and we're getting ever closer to our 5-year anniversary, which is just around the corner. But tonight, for a Monday evening, I've got an awesome guest, none other than the crazy mofo himself, Kamikaze. Kamikaze, how are you doing? And thank you so much for coming on the show. Look at them eyes. What a man. Born with that colour eyes. I don't know how, some sort of serpent or something. But Cam, how you doing? And thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Since I got here, you've been a big deal with all the boys. Like, they listen to your show on the long card rides, the trips. I mean, you have a who's who of the boys and the wrestlers on this show. So just thank you for taking the time to have me on here, man. It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you.
Oh, the honour is all mine. I can't wait over the next 90 minutes or however long we go to talk to Kamikaze about his illustrious career in the wrestling business, Canada, North America, and more recently over here in the UK. And we will take a deep dive into all of that. And of course, trained by the Harts, trained by Lance Storm, trained by Roddy Piper, who is a bit of a mentor of yours, and we will get into all of that and so much more. But just a quick reminder of some of my recent guests. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. And of course, somebody that Cam is very familiar with, Nathan Angel, was a guest on the show a couple of months ago. Really great guy, fantastic interview, and what a fantastic and a very exciting journey Nathan Angel has in the business. Not too long ago, we had the current Revolution Pro Wrestling, undisputed British heavyweight champion Michael Oku on the show. And last week, my most recent live interview was with Dave Sharp, who runs and owns, he's the founder of British Kingdom Professional Wrestling, formerly 4FW. And Dave's been promoting shows for close to 20 years. And we spoke about Brit King Pro and its first few shows happening just around the corner. And we had a fond look back to 4FW as well. A couple of weeks ago, we had part 1 of episode 6 of the Legends Masterclass with Mal Sanders. And part 2 dropped only yesterday, so check them out. Very, very popular guest by Mal Sanders. And episode 6 previous guests have included Marty Jones, Tony Sinclair, Adrian Street, Johnny Kidd, Lee Bamber, and of course Mal Sanders features on episode 6. And of course, my guest next week, next Monday, Jordan Sparks, just come back from the UK. He may be flying as we speak or possibly just landing, having spent 3 months training with Tom Pritchard over in the States. Can't wait to have a catch up with Jordan. But today it's all about this guy here. Wow, look at that. And there's the man in the flesh. But just a few pictures to flash up. There you are. Recent pictures, I think, taken by Aaron Nix, if I'm not mistaken. Some really awesome promo pics. A fantastic guy, great photographer, and so much more. But as you mentioned at the top of the show, Cam, you've been over here since, I think, early June.
Earlier, April.
April.
Yes,
Tell us about your stay over here in the UK so far, then. How's it been for you?
Oh, it's been fantastic. Like, I can't stress enough all the people that have helped me, looked out for me. I came in the dark, like just an unknown coming here, and so many people have put me in the right direction. I'm around the right people, the right trainers, and I'm so thankful that everyone just took care of this silly guy from Canada, just decided to hop on a plane and just jump in the dark, jump in the unknown. And I'm blessed. I'm very blessed. It's a beautiful country, and it'll be bittersweet when I have to leave, honestly.
Absolutely. And we've only got you here for about another month, another 4 or 5 weeks, and then you head back to Canada. So what do you have planned during that time? I'm guessing you're booked for shows. You're going to try and keep yourself busy over the next 4 weeks?
Yes, 100%. I want to go out with a bang. I'm trying to get on I think I'm booked up for some Mega Slam events and
nice
other things in the future here. But yeah, I just want to bang off as many as I can before I'm out of here. And it's been a wild ride. It's been awesome.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, we are live. So for anybody watching at home, live on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook Live, and you want to get in touch with the show, then you can do. The details are scrolling along the bottom of the screen, but just simply send us your questions or your comments through for Kamikaze, through to us using your chosen device. They'll ping through to us, and we do our very best to bring them up during the course of the interview. We've had quite a few drop in already. I'm going to have a look at those and bring them up. But for any of you that might not be too familiar with my guest, Kamikaze, I do have a bit of a highlights video. Now, this video, admittedly, is probably about 10 or 11 years old, but it perfectly illustrates and demonstrates what this guy is all about. Let's have a little look right now. There we go. I think that's a bit of a flavour of Kamikaze, what he has to offer, and we'll talk more about that. Very unique individual, very unique personality, and what an athlete in the ring. But a few people that have got in touch already, Cam. Some people you may be familiar with from ASW South. Will Rocket, big fan of Kamikaze. Great meeting and training with him. Big up, Will. I think he was probably the most recent student of the month, or one of the students of the month at ASW South. So
of the month, actually.
Absolutely. Megan, another trainee, another student with Joel. Big up, Cam. It's a pleasure training with you. Can't wait to see what you do in the future. And Megan as well, very excited for this interview. So thank you, Megan, and thank you, Will. But I've got to ask you, you mentioned that you've been over here since April. And what was the spark? What initially brought you over here? What was the inspiration for coming over to the UK?
Well, 7 years ago, I kind of just gave up on myself a little bit, stopped wrestling, for personal reasons. But before everything came crumbling down, so to speak, I was actually booked and supposed to come out to the UK and work for Brian Dixon for All Star Wrestling. A wrestler by the name of Frank Chick Cullen, who's worked for World of Sport and now he lives in Calgary. He took a liking to my work and he was going to put me over to Brian, and he said he could guarantee me some work out there on the holiday camp circuit and stuff. So that was like the next step for me. And then, of course, I kind of just, things went downhill a bit, and I stopped for 7 years actually wrestling. And when I finally snapped out of this funk I was in for such a long time, I just wanted to pick up right where I was supposed to leave off. Like, I didn't even train or wrestle in Canada. When I had the idea I wanted to get back in the sport, I was just like, okay, let's pick up right where I was supposed to leave off. I hopped on a plane, just in the dark, jumping in the unknown, didn't really know anybody out here, and I'm going to the UK. And so I arrived.
Wow. So after a 7-year absence, you hop on a plane, come over to the UK, try to pick up from where you left off. How has that been for you, kind of that big return and getting back into the swing of things?
Oh, like, it was crazy. I've originally started training at Play Fight in London.
Yeah.
And I got to train with Chuck Mambo and Nina Samuels, the Black Swan, Cara Noir.
Yeah, Cara Noir.
And yeah, it was a good time, somewhere to just get my feet wet again. I literally got off the plane. I found my way around on the tube, came to Play Fight London, like off of an 8-hour flight, and hopped right in a ring. And Chuck Mambo there was just like, "You're an animal." Like, my body was cramping up. I hadn't done it in like 7 years, but it was time to rock and roll, and just put up or shut up, and just dove right in head first, literally. Like, so
Amazing, amazing.
2 months.
That's great. And how did you first come across Joel and ASW South? And I've got a bit of a picture here I'm going to bring up. This was actually at a Steve Gray seminar, I believe, or possibly a James Mason seminar, actually. But that's the crew there. That's the place where you've helped out and where you've been training. How did you find out about Joel, and how did you find out about ASW South?
Well, that's the thing. I'm so blessed just talking to people here. Everyone's been so helpful. Like, it didn't take long. Adam Mansfield, Justin Roberts, they were some of the two first ones to like say, you got to see Joel Redman. I just kept hearing this name from all these people, Joel Redman, Joel Redman. I mean, I was at a show for Rumble Wrestling and I met the Peckham Playboy, Brandon Lee, Oli Blake. It was all the same thing. Joel Redman, you got to meet Joel Redman. So I messaged him and he was super cool. Like, I messaged a lot of promoters out here and I understand, like, I'm a nobody coming out here. It's been 7 years. So I really didn't hear from anybody, but Joel was like immediately replied to my messages and we got to talking and worked something out. And the first day at training, like, I knew I've been to a lot of seminars and camps and tryouts, and his style, his mentality was exactly the same as like the big leagues, what they're looking for, what they train. And from the first day of training, I was like, ding, 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 ding. You know, we have a winner here. This is the place to be, you know, respectfully. ASW South is the top school, no doubt.
Absolutely, and I wholeheartedly agree with your sentiments there. And like I say, when people think about Kamikaze, they think about the crazy mofo, the high flyer, the daredevil. But you are well versed in many different styles of wrestling. And like I say, I've done my research on you. I know that you are a wrestling historian and you're a student of the game. And we'll talk more about that during the course of this interview. But as you mentioned, Joel is very much a traditional British wrestler, a grappler, and believes in the fundamentals. Training with Joel and the guys down there, has that helped to sharpen your skills a little bit?
Oh my goodness. Like, it was awesome. Like, just getting reacquainted with everything, getting back into a good groove, getting my confidence back. There's like, 7 years is a long time. And in some things, it's like riding a bike. You don't forget. But then other things, like, you do. It's just, things just come back over time. Like, he give you feedback and critique of like, you do this and do that. And I remember thinking in my head, like, I used to do that all the time and shame on me for not. It was just like a reminder that just, getting back into those things again. And then there's other times you're getting critiqued by him and it's something completely you never even thought of, that, do this, do that at this certain time. It's like, well, yeah, that's makes 100% sense. Like, why haven't I been doing that before? So you just taking new things and being reacquainted with old habits as well. So it's been, I can't stress it enough. Any pro wrestler, breaking in or in the business, like, ASW South is where it's at.
100%. And we briefly touched on earlier, and we talked more about it. You're training with the Hearts, training with Lance Storm, training with Roddy Piper. You've done seminars with a whole laundry list of world-renowned stars. But one person I'm going to bring up here, he was fortunate enough, he was lucky enough to attend a seminar hosted by Steve Gray at ASW South. Now, I know that I mentioned that you're a bit of a wrestling historian and a student of the game. You're very familiar with the British style and world of sport as well, I'm sure. But to attend a seminar by somebody as renowned as Steve Gray, that must have been a thrill for you.
It was incredible, man. And what a great seminar too. Like, just old school British wrestling, simple, but just fundamentally fantastic, with pins and sequences and just the stuff you see from like the 1970s and 80s. And I'm just such a huge fan of that stuff, that style. And it was awesome, like, honored, just so lucky I've been around the right people. It's been great. It's been fantastic. And a lot of guys have been messaging me from Canada and the States. They're like, oh, I'm so jealous. You trained with Steve Gray. Like, like, he's this world renowned, a legend.
100%. 100%. We're going to talk more about that and so much more very, very soon. But a quick plug for Immortal Wrestling. And Immortal Wrestling, a company very, very close to my heart, are running a show on the 25th of November. And 3 matches that have been announced. And I urge you to get tickets from the Southwick Village Hall. Jack Selstrom, RJK, Johnny Storm, and the Flynn Daddy Flynn Burden will be competing over the King of England Championship at Immortal Wrestling Devil's Playground on November the 25th. Another match that's been announced is big. The Nomad Dalton Garrett versus the Outlaw Tim Strange. That's going to be a big battle between two big heavyweights. And one of our main events for the Devil's Playground is going to be this guy here. Dirty Dango, current Impact star, former WWE star Fandango, will be coming over to the UK. We're going to have Dirty Dango on the show on the 25th of November, going up against one of the finest and best characters, performers in the UK, Tate Mayfair's. Simply scan the barcode on the screen or go over to Immortal Wrestling socials for more information and to get your tickets today for Devil's Playground, and more matches to be announced very, very soon. But Dirty Dango must be somebody you're familiar with, Cam. I'm guessing you've crossed paths with him over the years, maybe?
I don't think I have, to be honest, but I've heard nothing but good things from guys like TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd. He was there for so long in the developmental system and, on the live events and stuff. A hell of an athlete and a hell of a wrestler,
Absolutely. And if I've got my information right here, you've recently come off of 6 weeks of doing the British summer holiday camps, Cam. Is that correct?
Yes, that was
Tell
awesome.
us a little bit about that with British wrestling legend James Mason. There you are in the back of his outside of his ring truck there. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how you found kind of the holiday camps, because the grind was pretty intense for those 6 weeks, wasn't it?
100%. That was so fulfilling. Like back in Canada, that's all you hear about it was all-star wrestling, holiday camps, consistent work, Brian Dixon. That was like the top 4 things about like British wrestling in the UK from Canada. Those are the top 4 things. So I was so just lucky to get all those reps in. Man, 6 weeks, we're banging out like 8 to 9 matches a week on top of our bookings on the weekends too. So there's that. And then on top of that, I'm with the young bucks, these 20-year-old kids, Nathan Angel, Brandon Lee. We're going to training 3 times a week on top of all of that as well. Like just living in the ring. But it was awesome. It was just incredible.
Here's a picture of you with your Canadian flag. And I mean, what was the reception like for you at the holiday camps? Were you the heel or were you the baby face? How did they receive Kamikaze?
It varied. It varied at times. There were times where I just had to show them what Canada was all about, so I had to get a little nasty. And then there are other times where, like, there's 1,000 people in Chelsea, and you're just working off that energy. There's no way, like, you're just feeling good, all these kids, and you just show them what you got. So it was a little bit of both. I was getting nasty at times, and then other times of just riding the wave of energy the great fans were giving us there at those camps.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that at the weekends you were on the road doing the indies, the UK indies, for promotions such as CSF, Rumble Wrestling, UBW, Welsh Wrestling, WrestleForce, IWE, Mega Slam, and so many more, I'm sure. But tell us about your experience on the UK indies, because you've put in a shift certainly on the UK indies. But how's your experience been on the UK indies? There you are. Crikey, you wouldn't know to look at some of them pictures that you had 7 years away from the business, Cam. But you were a busy boy. Tell us about your experience of the UK indies.
Oh man, it's been fantastic. Like just interacting with former NXT UK talent, trainers, agents. My first opportunity, I have to give props to Stephen Barker from Rumble Wrestling. He was the first one to give me an opportunity. And I thought it was very fitting, just being a student of the game and following World of Sport with the rounds matches.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome that my first match in the UK and back after 7 years was a rounds match. And I won, actually. It was 3-2, the pinfall count was. And I thought it was just very fitting, just being a traditionalist. And it was on like a carnival type show, and wrestling kind of started in the carnival circuit and stuff like that. So I thought it was just very, very cool experience, like to get that full British wrestling experience, that old school experience. So it was
Absolutely
awesome.
I'm going to flash up this image again, because I think that's yourself versus Nathan Angel, a former guest of mine, good friend of yours. And I think he's 19, 20 years old.
He just turned 20.
Unbelievable, isn't it? What's it like to get in the ring with? I mean, you mentioned Brandon Lee there as well, and
Natural.
Nathan Angel. But some of them young students at ASW South, you've had a chance to get in the ring with on the Indies. You must have been pretty impressed.
100%, 100%. I was getting a little nasty with Nathan on those holiday camps. Just it was good though. Like that kid can hold his own. And sky's the limit. He just needs to stay healthy, keep training hard, be a student of the game, study those that came before him, understand who paved the way for him in this industry. Sky's the limit, man. He's been bodybuilding since he was 15, wonderful physique. And then there's Brandon Lee, just a natural. Like him and I were rocking and rolling. Like he puts up a good fight, and we put on some bangers out there. It was hard fought matches. He's a natural, no doubt.
And did you notice any key differences between working the Indies over here in the UK and maybe working the Indies over in Canada or maybe North America? Anything that stood out to you, good, bad, or indifferent?
I found just being away for 7 years, the mentality's changed in some positive ways. There's not so much cutthroat, backstabbing, sharks swimming around as much. Everyone was very helpful, going out of their way, very supportive. So that I wasn't used to that. I broke in 2004 and things were a little more tougher. And even before my time, things were even more tougher, so it's interesting, different dynamic with that. Everyone was more welcoming and helpful. And I'm grateful for that, for people putting me in the right direction. And another thing I noticed is just the consistency, all the work out here, all the jobs, the matches you can get, the different promotions running. There's a lot of work out here. It's fantastic. It's been great.
And tell us a little bit about the fans as well, because like I say, I've been over to the States. I've seen wrestling over in North America, but I think the UK has got some of the best fans in the world. We're loud, we're entertaining, we're amusing with our chants and our songs, always enthusiastic. What are your thoughts on the UK fans?
That you nailed it, the nail right on the head there. When I first got here in April, I went backstage at a Progress wrestling show, got to meet some of the locker room. It was I think it was Heavy Metal, the steel cage match.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. And the fans is what just blew me away. I've seen it on YouTube, Progress, but to be there live and feel that electricity, the vibe, all the ridiculous chants and the songs they come up with, it's like your football, it's the same thing as those football crowds. Like it's wild. It's unparalleled to anything I've seen or witnessed, honestly. That's an electric crowd, I was very impressed.
They don't get much more raucous and entertaining than at a Progress show. Well, I go to many of the shows and I'm either working the merch stand or I'm doing interviews at Progress, but always a fun day at the Electric Ballroom for sure. And let me just refer to my notes here. Now, we were scheduled to meet, weren't we? I think at the very end of July the 30th, if I'm not mistaken, because I think you were going to be performing for ASW South's first show in Salisbury against another very promising up-and-comer. It's been on the scene for a few years, actually. Kylo Reese, I believe, that you were scheduled to be facing. But we found out on the day of the show that you've been struck down by a mystery illness, and we weren't able to meet. We weren't able to see you perform. We weren't able to do that backstage interview. But that was a real shame. Maybe, like I say, I'm glad to see you feeling much better now.
Oh, yes. Thankfully, man, I can't even say, like, it was the night before something happened. I was in the gym with Nathan. We're pumping some iron and my stomach just wasn't feeling right. And next thing you know, like I'm projectile vomiting, filling up trash cans like this big. Nathan, we laughed about it later, but you could just hear me in the bathroom like, oh God, like terrible. And I felt so bad just to message Joel and be like, I'm so sick. I can't even get out of bed right now. I can't do the show. It was a big kick in the nuts. It sucked. And I felt bad because I was looking forward to meeting you. I wanted to be a part of history with the first ASW show. And
yeah,
it sucked. It was a real kick in the nuts,
Maybe next time you're over here in the UK, you'll be on that show again for sure. I'm positive of it. I'm absolutely positive. So we mentioned that you're over here for another month or so, Cam, before you fly back over to Western Canada. What are your plans? I'm guessing that you're planning to appear on many more shows over the next few weeks.
Correct. Just going to try and go out with a bang here. And then I'm already been talking to Canadian promoters. Things are getting lined up. I do believe he's already confirmed, and it's looking like I'm going to be working with the Ultimo Dragon when I get back to Canada.
Very nice.
For a couple of matches. So I'm really looking forward to that. Very influential. One of my favorite high flyers back in the day for masked wrestlers. But yeah, I just want to go out with a bang here. I was talking to James Mason and Joel Redman, and could be riding the vehicle with Brandon and Nathan, just piggybacking along to events and just trying to get more work before I'm out of here, you know?
Absolutely. And we've alluded to it already, but I think next year marks your 20th year as a pro wrestler. Is that correct, Cam?
I guess involved in the business. Yeah. Like I said, there's that 7-year gap. So I don't, well, there was that, but like even during that 7 years, like I was still training, working out, stretching, and I was watching. I don't watch much current wrestling, but I've never stopped studying through my entire time watching just old school good wrestling from the 1950s into the 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. So I was always still learning and like picking up things. And especially when you're away from something so long, your perspective changes and you pick up on more things that you never did before. So I can't say I ever stopped learning, you know. But yeah, it's a good solid 12 years at least, from 2004 to 2016. And then I just made my comeback here. I just hit 50 matches yesterday at CSF. So 50 matches back since being away for 7 years. And it's been great. I'm riding the wave, and I plan to go back to Canada and just wrestle full time. I wrestled full time before I stopped. For 3 years, I didn't have a shoot job or anything. I was just wrestling, touring around, and I plan to do that again, to be honest, and stay nice and busy. So
absolutely. And we're going to take a deep dive into all of that. But I'm very curious about your wrestling fandom now. And so, 20 years involved in the business. You're a backyarder before that. We'll touch on that very, very soon. But when did your love for pro wrestling start as a fan? Can you remember kind of what hooked you?
Well, I was a little kid, be late 80s, early 90s. I remember Hulk Hogan just captivated me. My dad had a VHS tape of WrestleMania 3, and seeing Hogan and Andre, 93,173 people in the Pontiac Silverdome, and then Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat for the Intercontinental Championship. I remember watching that and just like jumping up and down out of my seat, all the false finishes and stuff. Like I was just blown away as a little kid. So I was a big Hulkamaniac at first for a long time. And then I remember watching WWF programming and seeing Jake the Snake Roberts and Earthquake, when Earthquake squished his snake in the bag. And I was so traumatized. Like, I didn't know what I just witnessed with that. That was just insane to me. And then I kind of fell out of it for a while. And then in grade 6, I would be about 11 years old. My parents divorced. And so I'd go to my dad's, my sister and I, every Monday night to just spend time. And he was a huge wrestling fan. He's the reason I'm in this business. And he was watching Monday Night Raw. This is from like 1998, the peak of the Attitude Era. So seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mick Foley, just blew me away. And that, at that point, was when I decided, like, I want to do this. This is so cool. Like, that's kind of how it started for me, to be honest.
Absolutely. And the wrestling scene in Canada has always been hot. It's always been renowned for producing some of the best wrestlers in the world. But how were you first introduced to indie wrestling? Was there much of an independent wrestling scene over in Canada, or certainly near where you lived? I
remember Stampede Wrestling when they restarted it in 1999. They would have a TV on the A channel. And so it'd show up on TV, I'd watch it, and then they'd do live events, and it would come to my hometown of Medicine Hat, and my dad would take me and my friends. And so watching it live was pretty cool. Before that, though, I remember just being into WWF. I was very anti-WCW just because it was just like, WWF is the best.
It's one or the other, isn't it? It's like Star Wars and Star Trek. It can't be both. It's got to be one or the other.
It was a war. I regret it now. There was so much good wrestlers and wrestling. So I just watched that all back on DVDs and tapes and stuff from YouTube. And then ECW was a huge game changer when my teacher of all people in 1999, He's like, have you seen this ECW? It was on a TV on the Nashville network every Friday night, the Thrill Zone Friday. And they had an hour time slot. And that was my first time seeing ECW. And that just like blew my mind. Like Rob Van Dam changed my life, to be honest. Like I wanted to be just like him, to be honest. I'd never seen anything like it before. Like, but yeah, Stampede Wrestling probably for independence was the one that came around a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you started your kind of your journey in the wrestling business as a backyarder, didn't you? I think from the age of 12, so very young. And I've seen several videos of yours on your YouTube channel, which is absolutely fantastic, by the way. And this is probably maybe skipping ahead a little bit here, but the trampoline and the backyard, and that's how you kind of you kind of fell in love with the business even more through being a backyarder.
Well, yeah, it was one of those things where like when I decided that's what I wanted to do, me and my best friend, Matthew Leismeister, we met in junior high and he wanted to be a wrestler too. And we couldn't wait because the training age was like 18 and we were only like 12. That's a long time away. So we just took things in our own hands, matters into our own hands. And we were very professional about it. Like we would do tape study and just put things in slow motion and watch how they executed and performed the maneuvers and how they did them. And then we'd practice. We had like a wrestling dummy that was just like a stuffed dummy all taped up and like you could do moves on them and practicing elbow drops and leg drops. And then it just turned into getting the old big VHS camera out, the camcorder. And my mom was filming us at first. And it just started with him and I, and it snowballed from age 12 to 17. That's what we did. And we had different characters and different move sets for each character and, you know, outfits. We'd made all these outfits and it snowballed. We wrestled in front of no people at first. Then our first crowd, there was like 12 people. We were 15 years old at the time. And then from there, like the 173 people, if you can believe it, crammed in my backyard.
I can.
That was the attendance record. And the cops got called, shut us down. We didn't get to do the main event, but like it snowballed. Like there'd be people I didn't even know just walking past and just coming and sitting down and watching. Like I had no idea who these people were. I didn't invite them. It just like was a phenomenon for a couple of years. It was awesome. And we called it CMF Wrestling.
You had your own promotion. Yeah. Yes, Crazy Mofo Wrestling.
Crazy Mofo Wrestling.
Brilliant.
I carry it to this day. It's kind of a tribute thing.
100%. And I mentioned just a moment ago your YouTube channel. There's lots of CMF footage on there from back in the day. And as I mentioned, the trampoline, the 4 ring posts, homemade ropes, and dozens and dozens and dozens of fans in the back garden watching. And it must have felt like your own little WrestleMania.
It really was. We did have our own WrestleMania. It was called Eclipse. We did 4 of them. And that was the last one, 173 people at Eclipse 4. It was our last show we would ever do. I was 17, and that was like the big WrestleMania, the biggest one. But a lot of credit, once again, goes to my father, my dad. You know, he got me into wrestling, and he built that ring. We called it the Trampo ring. And when I look at a real wrestling ring, he didn't know what he was doing, but he pieced it all together, and he built a ring. He literally built like a ring. It had steel cables underneath. We started with ropes and then we graduated to steel cables as ropes. So that's where I learned and taught myself all the high flying tricks that I have in my back pocket, you know, on the ropes. So excellent. I was in that ring every day.
You definitely saw the early beginnings of Kamikaze in some of that footage for sure. We had a question that came through before we went live from a friend of the show, Richie. How did you come up with the name Kamikaze? So I think I've kind of got an inkling as far as where this name came from, but fill us in. Where did the name Kamikaze come from?
So in school, junior high and high school, my first nickname was Gumby because I was so flexible. And I'd just be flipping and flopping and doing parkour before I even knew what parkour was. Just backflipping off walls and doing flips. I had my buddy like clothesline me in the hallway and I'd take like a backflip bump in the hallway and just showing off, you know, I was a big show off back in the day. And then just doing all these high risk things. I graduated from Gumby to, as a play off my name, Kamikaze. And that was like my nickname in school, Kamikaze. And yeah, that's how that came about, to be honest.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that the cops came along and closed the show down, the
Yeah.
final show, 173 people. But that was the kind of the early beginnings of your pro wrestling career. How did it lead on from there then, Cam?
Well, actually, so 2004 was the final year of CMF Wrestling. And I emailed a wrestling promoter in Edmonton, the capital of Alberta. It was Monster Pro Wrestling. And I basically lied. I basically said that I was trained. I was of age. You had to be 18 years old, but I was still 17. I hadn't even graduated yet. I hadn't even got my diploma. And I said, like, I'd love to do, they had like a camp horse show, like a training show. And there's like fans there and stuff, but it was like, just like a free show for guys to get experience. And he thought he'd, squeeze me on there, see what I had, kid, see what you got. And I took a Greyhound bus from Medicine Hat to Edmonton. It was like a 12-hour bus ride, and showed up, and I wrestled a man named Shane O'Ryan, who was pretty green at the time too, maybe a year in the business if he was lucky. And the ironic thing is that was my first match in May of 2004 in front of a crowd in a professional wrestling ring. And they never admitted it at the time, but like I outshined Ryan a little bit, Shane O'Ryan. And, but they made it clear, like I needed to get trained. I needed to do this properly. And I knew that too, going back when I took my bus ride home. But that was my way of getting in the business. I lied. I'm a dirty liar. I just said I was trained and like had to just jump in and get my opportunity. But the funny thing is, Shane O'Ryan, like the man I had my first match with, when he retired, he gave me his wrestling boots. So I've been wrestling with his boots ever since he retired in 2012, I think it was. It's just kind of like a full circle kind of thing. My first match with him, and now I'm rocking his boots. So yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And I think for the first maybe 4 or 5 years of your career, you wrestled under a mask, didn't you? Is that correct?
Yes.
And there's a picture of you, the rookie sensation,
That's
Kamikaze, and there's another picture there.
Show and tell.
Absolutely. And another picture of yourself with your former tag team partner. Now, just remind me of his name.
Eclipse.
Eclipse.
Yes,
Eclipse. Absolutely.
We were the brothers in flight.
How come you started off under a mask?
That was the promoter's idea. He just pictured me just because of my style, just flying around. He just thought I needed to wear a mask. I rolled with it because a lot of my favorites, like Satoru Sayama, the original Tiger Mask, big fan. Jushin Thunder Liger, Ultimo Dragon, the Great Sasuke, Hayabusa. Like I really was into these guys at the time. And so I thought it was cool to rock a mask and follow in their footsteps. And I even designed it as time went on. The mask got to look like a mix of like Liger and Ultimo and Hayabusa mixed together. But I was
definitely see the Hayabusa in that for sure.
Yeah, with the hair popping out for sure. And I was very good with just facial expressions and stuff. So I made sure the eye holes were really big and the mouth was really big, because in a lot of ways it hid so much of what I could show to the people with my facial expressions and everything else, the character. And Adam Pierce, actually, he was the one that told me when he found out I was wearing a mask at a Ring of Honor tryout, he was blown away. He was like, why are you wearing a mask? Because I did the tryout with no mask on, so he could see everything clearly. Yeah. But he was blown away. He's like, no, you got to get rid of that. Like, your face is your money. Like, why are you wearing a mask? So shortly after I got rid of the mask, I had a match. It was like a title versus mask match, and I lost. And that's when I lost the mask. And I've never looked back since.
Absolutely. I want to stick with your first year in the business, because your first year in the wrestling business, you worked for, and you mentioned just a moment ago, Monster Pro in Canada, and they struck a TV deal. And
yes,
so for the first year of your professional wrestling career, at the age of 17, 18 years old, you would have had this incredible experience of performing in front of the cameras, which is something that not many 17, 18-year-old rookies have the chance to do. But in your case, that must have brought you on leaps and bounds and given you some great experience there.
100%. It was crazy. Like, talk about the right place, right time. Like, they struck the deal with a television company called Access Television, and it was across Canada. You could go on like the channel guide, the TV guide on the TV, and you could see Monster Pro Wrestling at Friday nights at so-and-so time. And it was cool. Like, just, ECW was just rebooted by WWE, and they had a Friday night time slot. And then right after ECW ended on Access Television, Monster Pro Wrestling was on right after that. So like we kind of piggybacked off of the viewers, the wrestling fans, and it got great coverage. We were the only promotion in Canada since Stampede Wrestling to have like Canada-wide television. And just like graduating high school, and then like all your buddies are watching you on TV and stuff like that. Like it was pretty awesome. Like it was, dreams were coming true at the time. It was just, I couldn't imagine it. It was just right place, right time. Very thankful for that time and experience. It was incredible.
Invaluable experience for sure. And I'm going to bring up this picture again of yourself and Eclipse, and you were the Monster Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions. So at such a young age, winning championship gold. Obviously, you the two of you had a striking look. But winning championship gold alongside a good friend there, Eclipse, that must have been pretty special for you at the time.
100%. It was 1 year into the business, basically, into the sport, that I won my first championship. And the brothers in flight, Eclipse and Kamikaze, we were just a great flashy tag team, fan favorites. And what a great guy Eclipse is. He's still working the scene under a different character now. He's actually, I don't want to expose his identity, but he is working as someone else these days.
We'll talk off camera.
Sure, yeah, 100%. Protect that. I like to protect things. I'm old school.
Absolutely.
Great human being. I couldn't have thought of a better person to win him with. He's a heart of gold. He's a gem of a man. Great man.
Absolutely. Now, we've got a ton of really, really fun stories to get into very, very soon. But one story I want to delve into is, and this is some information that you shared with me before we went live, and that was that you wrestled in your early years with no ACL in your left knee for nearly 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Still performing, still moving up the ranks. Surpassing some of your peers, but no ACL in your left knee for nearly 3 years, Cam, and you just carried on.
I did. I was young and dumb. It was very stupid looking back on, but I was just so young and having this obstacle, this roadblock. Like I just refused the reality of the situation to get surgery. Like I couldn't stop. I didn't want to take any time off, and I don't know how I did it. I'm blessed with great athletic ability. And a good brain intuition of never stopping learning. And I don't know how I did it, but it was crazy to think and look back on, especially now. I would not recommend anybody doing that. Get surgery, get fixed up. But yeah, 2 years and 9 months, I wrestled with no ACL. Was like nominated for Wrestler of the Year my first time. I didn't win it the first time, but during that time, I'm like competing with guys with 2 good legs. I only got 1. And I'm still just like moving up the ranks and like surpassing a lot of guys, to be honest. Like it's just crazy, stupid, young and dumb. Stupidity and toughness kind of go hand in hand in a lot of respects. But I would not recommend anyone doing that. That was just, I guess I was just young and dumb, and just I would not repeat that by any means this day and age.
But I'm guessing that when you're young like that, Cam, you don't want to lose your spot. You don't want to be out of the business for any length of time. No. That must have been your mentality, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. It's so early on in my career. Like I can't stop now. Like I got to keep on pushing through. Like I just I don't know. I don't know how I did it, but
you wouldn't recommend it.
No, not at all.
Not in a million years.
Goodness gracious, no. Thanks for a good little story, but I'm so lucky. I could have damaged things so much more worse. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like blew out the other one. Usually that's what happens 9 times out of 10, because the other leg was doing all the work. To be honest, like I was doing everything on one leg. But yeah, it's crazy to look back on. I'm very lucky, very lucky.
I want to touch on some of your trainers now, and some of your coaches, some of your mentors from years gone by. Chichi Cruz is one name that jumps out. Lance Storm is another. Roddy Piper, of course. Tell us about certainly Chichi and Lance, because they were very fundamental in your career, weren't they?
Yes. So when I started training after my little bus excursion to Edmonton and having my first match, I had 2 matches, actually. I worked at Battle Royal as well. So I had 2 matches before I even graduated, 17 years old. And I decided, I need to get trained, of course. So I saved up money and I came back. I went to college for a year in acting and drama, but I loved wrestling more. So wrestling was it. So I made my way up to Edmonton. I moved there with like a couple blankets and some VHS wrestling tapes, like not a whole lot, and like $1,000 in my pocket. Very naive, young and dumb, and started training. And right place, right time. Just so happened that Chichi Cruz, who had been wrestling at that point in time in 2005 for 20 years, all over the world. He'd been to Japan. I was talking to James Mason. He'd wrestled him countless times in Germany and internationally in Europe. And Cheech was the real deal, man. Like, Cheech would walk into a room and he just had a presence. You'd look at him and you'd be like, there's no other job this guy can be doing than he's a professional wrestler. Like, there's nothing else. It's just, he's a natural. He's amazing. What a veteran. And that's the thing. I'm lucky because nowadays anyone can open up a wrestling school, but you need worldly experience or big league experience, 15 to 20 years of experience at least, I feel personally. And Cheech was the man at the time. He was in that same group of guys as like Edge, Christian, Lance Storm, Jericho, Don Callis, Johnny Swinger, all these other Canadians, Joey Legend. He was in that same clique and that same group of guys. He just didn't happen to make it, but that doesn't take away from any of his talent. And in fact, in Edge's Hall of Fame speech, in the unedited version, Edge puts over Chichi Cruz. Like, he puts him over hard. So it just goes to show, like, he was a true veteran of the Canadian scene. So that was my first trainer, and invaluable experience. He made me question things like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Like, just everything. He was just an old school mentality. It was great. Cheech, nothing but love for you, man.
Absolutely. And tell me a little bit about this guy here. Lance Storm from the Lance Storm Training Academy, and another legend of the business and renowned trainer. He's trained some of the best in the modern era. And like I say, you got the opportunity to spend some time with Lance probably a while ago, maybe 10 or so years ago, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I trained at his school in 2012, but he was the booker for Prairie Wrestling Alliance.
Okay.
For several years. And it was awesome to have him involved, because before he got the book, a lot of guys were just kind of indie-rific and just doing whatever they wanted. Things didn't build up to the main event. Like, the guys are just doing dives in the opening match, and just guys are just in it for themselves, being selfish, showing off, getting their shit in. And then Lance took over the book, and like, everyone had no choice but to smarten up. And I couldn't have been more happier about it, because I never worked like that and always was taught properly there's ring psychology and there's card psychology. You got to know your role on the card, build to the main event, know your role where you are on the show. And Lance enforced all that. So then started getting critique after all my matches with Lance, and it was awesome. Everyone benefited greatly from it. And then I was out with an injury for about a year. It was my knee again. And I just sat with Lance at every show twice a month and was just under the learning tree. I just watch him critique everybody through the entire show, just stayed quiet and listened to what he had to say. And then when I was healed up and ready to come back, I wanted to train with him, and he gave me a sweet deal to train with him for 3 months. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. He definitely polished me up, and took away a lot of bad habits I never knew I had, taught me so much. It's a shame his school isn't open anymore, but it was one of the best schools in the country for sure. Like, just down to basics, what matters, what the big leagues are looking for, the fundamentals. He's a great, great trainer. ASW South, I think of Lance Storm School, like, they're right on par with one another, like top notch. Yeah, great.
Absolutely. I want to talk about this guy here now, Roddy Piper, a true mentor of yours, probably like a father figure as well. But before we do, I do have a video that features Roddy Piper. Let's just watch this.
Excellent.
It's all in how you mix the two, and it starts just where the light exists. It's a feeling that you cannot miss. It burns a hole through everyone that feels it, where you're never gonna find it if you're looking for it. Go
Does that bring back some memories? Oh, look, there's a little cameo from Nathan Angel. Sweet gym vest there, sweet gym vest. That's the new Wrestling with John's established 2018 gym vest that Nathan Angel was sporting there. Thank you very much. £5 in the post to you, but great to see you, Nathan, former guest of the show. We spoke earlier about your match with Kamikaze. Was that at one of the holiday camp shows? How was it to get in there with Cam?
No, it's a privilege to get in there with Cam, and I think it's just more testament to how cool the ASW South school is, because not only do we have these awesome trainers there, but we're also attracting this amazing talent from all over the world that's coming down. And Cam, I'm sure, as you know, has got a hell of a lot to teach and share with us, and we all really benefit from all these different amazing wrestlers that are just seeing the school and they're coming down. And it's been a pleasure to have him, and looking forward to when he comes back.
Oh, 100%. And congratulations, Nathan. I understand that you're going to be heading for your first European show very soon. Is it Germany you're heading over to soon?
Yeah, October 12th. So I'm really excited for that.
You must be hyped for that, for sure.
But better get back to Kamikaze, because that video package was so awesome.
It really is. We need to talk about Roddy Piper. But thank you for sporting the vest. It looks good on you, my friends. The colours pop. And they will be available on general public very, very soon. But thank you, Nathan. Thank you. So brilliant guy. I love Nathan, Nathan Angel so much. He looks even better in that gym vest for sure. But,
yeah, doesn't he?
Going back to that video, and does that bring back some good memories, some fond memories?
Yes. You know what? I said like I had issues with my knee again, and that was when I sat under the learning tree of Lance Storm for that year. That match, if you can believe it, that was when I hurt my knee prior to that match. And I'm wrestling in that ladder match with no ACL once again. And that was the last time I ever would do that. But yeah, in that match you just watched, I had no ACL in my left knee. So yeah.
There we go. I'm going to bring up some pictures of yourself with the Rowdy one. And there we go. What a great guy. And like I said, a mentor, a father figure towards you. A great coach. He obviously thought a lot of you. Give us a bit of insight into your relationship with Roddy Piper. How did you first kind of come onto each other's radar?
So that was all part of a wrestling reality TV show called World of Hurt. And I was able to get on as one of the wrestlers on the show. And he was just the personal trainer that was going to be putting us through the ropes and teaching us new things, new tricks. The thing I'll benefit the most is promos. He really helped open me up and find myself and be more comfortable who I am. And just promos was the biggest thing I got away from Roddy Piper, no doubt. And just still with that old school mentality of protecting yourself out there, watching yourself against shady promoters. And this business is about making money. He couldn't put that over and stress that over enough. This business is about making money. You're tearing your body up. You need to be making some money, he said. So I took a lot of that away from him. It was a wild experience on that show. I picture this. So my knee's blown out. I have no ACL. I show up to training and we got to do a prepped up on the fly, I might add, ladder match in training in front of Roddy Piper with only one good leg on the fly, no time to figure anything out. And it's a ladder match to prepare for the actual event. And me and Nick Price just went out there on the fly, did a ladder match in training. Like, who does a ladder match in training? It was just like insane. And just being injured too on top of that with Roddy Piper watching to boot. The pressure is crazy. But at the end of it all, during the training match, we got like a standing ovation from the crew, the camera crew, all the boys and the wrestlers. And it was crazy. Just a crazy experience. He pushed us to our limits and we learned a lot from him, especially in promos. I can't stress the promo enough. It was invaluable. There's not many people they have to say they got to train with, Roddy Piper. So I'm blessed. I'm very lucky.
Did you get much time to spend any personal time with the great man when the cameras weren't rolling? What sort of knowledge did he impart on you? And what sort of a person is he kind of behind the scenes when there's no camera, no lights?
So he was very protective. He would only show up when the cameras were on. We never got to get much interaction with him without off camera. However, I was one of the few on the show, that just by struck a luck. Like I just run into him during catering, back in like the back parking lot of the studio, and there he is, just having like a smoke. Roddy Piper smoking. I didn't know he smoked, and he's just puffing on a cigarette. And I just like caught him out of the blue and just started talking to him and asking for advice. And so I was one of the few that got like off camera time with him. And I just never remember. I'll never forget him saying like, "You're ready for rock and roll, Green Eyes." That was like my nickname to him, was Green Eyes. Like, "You're ready for rock and roll." And he'd just be rubbing my shoulders like, "You're ready for rock and roll, Green Eyes." Like it was cool, man. And there's another time I ran into him as well during catering. Like I was just lucky, just luck of the draw, just catch him off camera, and no one else really got that. So it was cool. It was pretty cool. But he protected himself. Like he made sure to stay away only when the cameras were on. Then it was go time for him, So I was lucky to catch him in the act smoking a cigarette,
He was proper old school there, wasn't he? But one of the best that's ever lived. One of the best that's ever lived, for sure.
Yeah.
And memories I'm sure you'll cherish forever. A few people that have been in touch, and we got Axel Carter. Been in touch watching us live via YouTube. Man. Thank you, Axel. True professional cam. What a great guy. And we got another ASW South trainee, Dan Patterson, watching us live via Facebook Live. Thank you, Dan. Cam is such an amazing guy. Was nice to have a road trip with and to hear his crazy stories, especially the car flipping over story. Mind blowing. We're going to talk about the car flipping over story a bit later on for sure. Right. We've got Dr. P watching us via YouTube. Big up, Cam. The gentleman outside the ring, animal inside the ring. And Dr. P, again, great interview. Thank you very much for watching. And a few people that have got in touch about a possible dream team between yourself and Nathan Angel. There's still time. There's still time. Get him over to Canada with you, and you can form a real fantastic team over there. Let's see who else has been in touch. Oh, here we go. Adam Mansfield. You mentioned him earlier.
Oh, yeah, the man.
Live via YouTube. Thank you, Adam. What's been your favorite character while you've been over here in the UK? And you mentioned some Play Fight, for example, Cara Noir and Chuck Mambo, and so many others that you've been able to actually get in the ring with and mix it up with over here in the UK. Any characters that have really caught your eye or that you've become a fan of since working over here in the UK?
Well, I wouldn't call him a character, but Levi Muir, what a specimen. Like, holy smokes. Like, he reminds me of like a new age Tony Atlas or something. Like, he was like, just like, how could you just like not look at this guy? Like,
the guy's jacked.
Crap. Right. And we had a hard-hitting match, main event of Ultimate British Wrestling. It was pleasure, and he trained with Lance Storm as well. Pleasure to work with him, wrestle him. He brings a good fight for sure. I'm trying to think for characters that stand out. I've had some good laughs seeing entertainment from the Rap Master, actually, Oli Peace. There's been some good moments there, seeing his promos and stuff like that. I'm gonna have to think about that. Yeah, I'll have to come back to that and revisit that question. Really think hard about all the people and characters.
Absolutely. And we want to talk about some seminars that you've attended. We mentioned some earlier on, but some names that really popped out to me when I was doing my research. Ricky Steamboat, for example, Chris Hero, Raven, El Snow. You mentioned ECW. I was a massive original ECW fan back in the day. Vader, Harley Race, Marufuji, some legendary names there. And Vader, I've got to say, probably one of my all-time favorite wrestlers ever. Managed to watch him kind of in the early 90s doing his thing. But give us a couple of stories from some of them names. I mean, Ricky Steamboat, Vader, Harley Race, legends of the business.
So a lot of those were all clumped together at the Harley Race camp in 2009. Pro Wrestling Noah, Harley Race, and the WWE all collaborated together for this big camp tryout, and it lasted almost 2 weeks long in Eldon, Missouri, Harley's hometown, just a little town in Missouri. And the trek there was something else, just getting on a plane, then having to get a rental car. Like, it was nowhere near any major metropolitan areas. It's just this little place tucked away. Great wrestling school. But yeah, there's a lot of good Japanese influence there. Atsushi Aoki was there. I don't know how I'm saying the name right. Naomichi Marufuji was there as well. He had a blown out knee at the time, but he was still rolling around training with us. We learned a lot from those two. Terry Funk shows up. I had breakfast with Terry Funk and his wife.
No way.
Oh, it's unreal.
That's awesome.
Vader shows up, and Vader at the time, he had like a really bad back. So he had to sit on like one of those giant gym medicine balls. So just picture Big Van Vader sitting on like a pink medicine ball, like, and just like critiquing and watching our matches and stuff. So it was quite the visual.
Nice.
But there's a little local diner, and we all went to eat there, me and a couple of the other Canadians on the crew. And Vader's there in the diner, and he pulls us over, and he bought us a chocolate cake. And at first I thought it was like a rib. Is he ribbing us? But like he joined in too, and like we all just ate chocolate cake with Vader. Like it was unreal, like unreal. Ricky Steamboat was there, critiqued and watched all our matches. Funny story, actually. Like there was like 50 guys at this thing, and it was actually my first tryout camp I ever did in 2009. And I wasn't ready, but advice to everyone out there, like you just got to do it. You just got to jump into the unknown and just do it. So I jumped into the deep end and learned a lot, took away a lot from it. But I definitely wasn't ready at the time, but I don't regret it one bit. And you just got to keep doing those things. But yeah, Ricky Steamboat watched and critiqued like over 25 matches at least. And by the end of it, like he was like in his chair, like falling asleep. Like it was just way too much to handle, you know, like he was great. Just getting his feedback and learning from him. Who else was there? Trevor Murdoch was there. So we got to train and learn from him. And then the man himself, Harley Race. Like I'm such a big fan. There's a great story. This indie-rific twerp, he's just like saying all this stupid stuff. Like, well, what if I were to hit like a Canadian destroyer and then he gets up and then he hits me with a reverse hurricanrana and then we give like a super kick each to one another. And you're just going on and on this convoluted sequence. And Harley Race finally gets pissed off and he just like stands up and he's like, quit asking dumbass questions. And like, I was just like in my head, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, thank you, Harley. Like, shut this kid up. Like, who are you? Like, just, I loved it. That was just a great little story. I'll never forget that. Harley Race just laying down the law, you know, putting those indie twerps in place.
And Jake Roberts as well. I think you attended a seminar with Jake Roberts. And I think you also got to drive him around a little bit and kind of take him from place to place. That must have been quite fun and interesting. A very unique experience.
Yes. So we did a seminar with him in the day before a show he was booked on. And yeah, it was great just learning the psychology side of things with him. And he like forgot his bags. So someone had to drive him back like 45 minutes across Edmonton to his hotel. So I just, you know, volunteered just to spend some time with old Jake Roberts. And it was a great little car ride. He's like a very like comical, but like bitter man, but like comical at the same time, you know, like just had like a comedic wit to everything, even though he's just grumpy and bitter. But it was like funny in a way, you know, like a comedic twist to it all. And I remember just being at a gas station filling up, and there he is just like lighting up a smoke right by the gas pump. So I was like, Jake, what are you doing? Like, and he's just like looking at these girls, these women walking out. He's like, oh, she's pretty hot, hey? And I was just like, yeah, they're like 25 years old, Jake. Like, calm down. But like, oh, he was great to be around, and got to ride around, chauffeur him around for a bit. So the training was really good too.
I think that's Jake Roberts ringing up now.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh geez.
Wanted to fill you in on that story, and yeah. But I want to talk a bit about the Harts now. We spoke about the Hart family at the top of the show, and they also took a bit of a liking to you and took you under their wing, especially Bruce and Ross and Smith Hart. And also you had some interactions with Brett. But tell us about that whole kind of story, and especially being around the Hart family and getting the chance to spend some time with them and to be coached by one or two of them.
Oh.
Hello, Cam.
Hello.
You're there. I don't know if you caught any of that, but tell us a bit about the Harts and the Hart family and your interactions with those, because I understand that Ross and Smith and one or two others actually played a bit of a part in your journey, taking you under their wing, training you, looking after you, and also led to some interactions with Brett as well.
Yes, 100%. So I first met Bruce, was the first one I ever met during those early years of Stampede Wrestling when they rebooted it and came to Medicine Hat. And I was like 12, 13 at the time. And I actually talked to Bruce about training. And he wanted American money to train. So it'd be like $5,000 American. And my dad's like, there's no way. And it was ridiculous. That was a ridiculous thing, especially in Canada, to pay American money. So that never worked out. And then fast forward, I'm in the business. And I got to train with Bruce in his backyard. He had an old school Stampede Wrestling ring. And Bruce was a great trainer, like very knowledgeable, but like he can go off on tangents and get a little long-winded. So like training will start out great. And then all of a sudden he's just like talking about Vince McMahon and how he's an asshole or something, you know, and we'll go on for like an hour of that. And like, so you got to just keep Bruce on track and you can learn a lot, but he will, if you don't keep him on track, he'll just start rambling about people in the business. And then you're just sitting there not doing anything. Ross, the boss, Ross Hart is probably my favorite. He would just show up to shows locally in Calgary. And boys and girls, you want any feedback, if you're ever on a show or an event with Ross Hart, you ask him to watch your match. Like I've never had such good feedback, critique on things, what to work on, what I should do better than Ross Hart. Like he just has an eye and a mind for wrestling, like one of the best to get feedback from. So he was very helpful, took a good liking to me, and a great guy. Like what a great human being, like just a heart of gold. Probably my favorite out of all of them for sure.
And the guy here, I think
there's the man. I got to actually be on the road. He came on the road with us and traveled and did some shows. Like he didn't wrestle or nothing, but we got to travel with Ross the boss for a couple weeks, and it was just a pleasure to have him along with us, you know, on the road. Smith, I got to train at one of his wrestling rings. He had a school for a short while, and knowledgeable as well. He passed away, unfortunately. But Wayne Hart, he never trained or anything like that, but he was the referee of the family. And I was lucky he refereed some of my matches, actually. It was just really cool to have Wayne Hart refereeing your matches and stuff like that. And then leading to Brett, the big man, the hitman himself. So I dated Amaris Billington, the Dynamite Kid's youngest daughter, for 3 years. And I got to meet Brett's kids, Jade, Beans, Blade, and Dallas. And we'd go to like social functions together and little parties. We'd have like, you know, little birthday parties at the Hart House, at like Brett's mansion outside of Calgary, which was a crazy experience in itself, being there and just hanging out with his kids and stuff. And Blade Hart's hilarious, like such a charismatic kid. I can't say enough good things about him. He's a funny guy. But it turned out that Jade, Brett's oldest daughter, she told Brett about me, and he took a look at some of my footage and my matches, and he wanted to meet me. And it kind of snowballed from there. He took a liking to me. He compared me to a young Edge. He said that I reminded him of a young Edge in the way that I worked safe and the way I moved around. Because he had a part, he trained with like Edge and Christian and Ken Shamrock. A couple of those guys he brought to the Hart House at the time and helped them out before they were all signed. I think they were signed, but he was like polishing them up, basically.
Yeah.
So just getting that, you know, from him, like what a feather in your cap. It was just awesome. And then he would later go on and put a word in for me at my performance center tryout later on. And just going in with the hitman endorsing you, it was such a confidence booster. Like I went into that tryout like ready to rock and roll, and just knowing that I had that, you know, reference was just, you know, no one can take that away from me, you know, from the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. So I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky.
Absolutely. And I think this is when you were maybe 16 years old.
Yes,
so you was
16,
a big Hitman
it.
fan before
Yes.
you knew him personally.
Yes.
I showed him that obviously picture. a bit of a hero of yours, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. So my auntie, she won tickets to a Hitman game in Calgary and invited my dad and my sister and I and my best buddy Matt that I used to backyard wrestle with. So we go up to Calgary and we got to watch a Hitman game with Bret Hart for the entire duration. And I remember just bugging him asking all these questions about the original Tiger Mask, Satoru Sayama, wrestling in Japan. Like I just had to know as much about Japanese wrestling from him as I could, like just pestering him. But he was a class act. And I showed that picture to him later on. And actually, during that time, I gave him a VHS tape of CMF wrestling. And he like took it. I don't know if he ever watched it or not, but like, I gave him like my tape to him and he took it. So it was pretty crazy. It was full circle after meeting him at that age. And then he goes on to like put you over and endorse you, you know, to WWE and stuff. I'm blessed. I don't stop and reflect on this stuff enough sometimes. Like it's been crazy. A wild ride.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your WWE tryouts, because I think we spoke a bit off camera, and I think you clarified that you've had 3 tryouts. One back when there was FCW developmental, and the other 2 when there was the PC.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about some of those tryouts, how they went, and any feedback you might have received from any of those, and any fun stories as well.
So the first one would have been the Harley Race Camp. And that was the style. It was like Pro Wrestling Noah, WWE. And you had to pay to go. But like, do not let that discourage you guys. Like, you got to get out there. You got to get your face out there, make contacts. Like, don't ever turn your nose up at having to pay to go to these tryouts and seminars and stuff like that. Like, they ain't coming looking for you. You got to go out there and show your face. So that was the first one. And I wasn't ready, like I was saying. The second one was in 2010. FCW, WWE would hold these pay to come and try out with them in Florida, in Tampa it was. And so myself, Dylan Knight, who's an Australian wrestler, and Matthias Wild, as he was known in Alberta, but is now known as Tyler Breeze, we all went together, and I stayed at Tyler Breeze's house, and he helped pay for my flight, and I like paid him back afterwards and stuff like that. But yeah, we like stayed together and I had a great time with him. We were on the scene a bit together. He's a funny, great guy. And we do the tryout there, and it was almost like a rib. I remember we're all waiting to like be let into the building, this FCW training building, and we're all in suits. The sun, it's blistering hot. Like I got like heat stroke being in like a suit and tie, and the sun
is
is
like a big warehouse, wasn't it? I seem to remember. It was really, really no air conditioning, really hot.
Yeah, but this is even before they let us in.
Oh, really?
We're just outside in Tampa, Florida, heat in suits and just cooking. And they made us sit outside for like an hour and a half. And like my brain was boiling. When they finally let us in, I had like heat stroke from that. And it was great. We trained with like Steve Kern. Finley was there. We got to train with Finley. Norman Smiley was there. Trained with Norman Smiley. There's Billy Kidman was there. And Dusty Rhodes was there too. Jim Ross showed up. John Cena showed up and like did a little pep talk to all of us. And that wasn't even planned. He just like showed up. That was crazy. And that was about 5 days long, I think. And yeah, it was good experience. And I got a lot of feedback from that. And they were really cool too. Dr. Tom Pritchard was there, an excellent trainer. Got to train with him too. They would email you or send you, maybe it was in a letter. I think it was in a letter afterwards. They'd send you your matches on DVD and then all your critique of things you need to work on. And it was kind of full circle. Like I needed to work on certain things. And by the time I had my extra work a couple years later, the same talent scout that was there, he like recognized me and he was blown away. It was like night and day seeing me from 2010 to 2013 it was. And I basically just told him like I worked on everything you guys told me to work on. And he was like, yeah, clearly you did. Like great job. Like, and that's how I got my performance center tryout, years later there. But getting noticed with the performance center, I did some extra work for WWE in 2013 for Raw and SmackDown. And Regal was there. We did matches in front of him before the doors opened. And I had a good match with Danny Duggan. And then when it came to promo time, that's when I knocked it out of the park. I remember everyone was like going, and I like purposely went last just because I knew, I just felt it. Like I knew I was going to knock this mother out of the park. And I did. They all told me it was Paul Heyman, the Brooklyn Brawler, Matt Stryker, and that talent scout that I met in 2010. They were all there watching the promos. and they told me I had the best promo out of everybody. It was the most entertaining. It was refreshing compared to everyone else's. And after my promo was done, Paul Heyman jumps out of his chair and just like in Paul Heyman fashion, sign this kid. And then he storms out of the room. And like, I was just blown away. I couldn't believe what just happened. And I thought I had a job right there. Like, I thought I did it. Like, that was it. Like, I did it. And they had to calm me down. Like, no. You know, you're going to have to do a tryout at the Performance Center. I wish I would have just like fought more and be like, no, screw this. Like, give me a job. I want a job right now. But like, yeah, it just for Paul Heyman to jump out of his seat like that and just be like, sign this kid. And then he took me aside later and he's like, hey kid, come here. And he takes me aside and he's like, you got some balls, kid. He's like, I don't know how good you are in the ring. I haven't seen you work. Like, you could be the shits for all I know, but your promo, he's like, you got something. You got balls, kid. Like, keep it up. And I was just like, TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd comes up to me afterwards. It got a little bit of news reaction from the boys in the back and stuff. And he's like, man, despite whatever happens, like, for that to happen, like, that is a feather in your cap. Like, be proud of that for someone like that, the mad scientist of wrestling, to react the way he did to you. So that's just another little notch in my belt, a little feather in my cap there. But that earned me a tryout at the Performance Center. Yeah,
absolutely. One of my points I wanted to raise was about promos, because you just kind of check out some of your promos on your YouTube channel and you'll see, you know, from a million miles how good you are in front of a mic, in front of a camera. And you are definitely a good promo guy, and obviously recognized there by Paul Heyman and WWE. But let's talk about some of your notable matches now then, Cam, if we can. And I've got a bit of a list here. Jinder Mahal, for example, Chris Masters, Matt Stryker, Mickey Mundo, Kalisto, Victor from the Ascension, Davey Boy Smith Jr., Brian Cage, the Bollywood Boys, Trent Beretta, Jack Evans, and the list goes on. One thing that really stood out to me, though, besides those names, is that I think you also wrestled Sami Zayn in his very last independent wrestling match before signing with the WWE. So an awesome list of opponents there, some notable names from around North America and Canada, and of course being Sami Zayn's last opponent before he joined the Fed.
It was cool. That was a big tag team match, actually. So it was myself and several others versus Sami Zayn, and several others. Kalisto was in there as well. But it was just cool to, you know, I hit a swanton bomb on him and got to, you know, we put up a fight back and forth. Like, he's an incredible competitor. But yeah, it was just pretty cool. Like, he was El Generico at the time, and just to, you know, say you're involved in his last match before you got signed to WWE is pretty cool. You know,
it really is.
Cool.
What about some of them other opponents? Don't even really kind of stand out as being some of your maybe favorite opponents that you've worked, or any for any interesting reasons they might stand out in your mind?
Chris Masters. And the reason behind that, not only was it like a really good match, I was proud of it. It just gave me more confidence and reassured me that, like, I can hang with like a stereotypical muscle bound WWE superstar.
Huge, isn't he? Yeah.
Huge, tall. And I'm not the biggest guy, and I never will be, but like, to have a believable, you know, fight, struggle back and forth with this guy, entertaining the people in the process. Like, it just reinforced, like, I can do this and I can hang with these type of guys, you know? And he loved the match, and he put me over hard afterwards, and he said like he'd try and get me booked in other places and stuff like that. And that just meant the world. Like, he enjoyed working with me. So that one I really enjoyed. That one just stands out just because, you know, stereotypically the WWE is like larger than life athletes, and to work with someone like that who's a larger than life athlete and to go toe to toe and hang with them, you know, just let me know like I can do this, you know, with, you know, anybody.
What about Jack Evans? Because out of all of that list, I would say that Jack Evans is probably the talents, the performer, probably most similar to your style in terms of being a bit of a risk taker, an aerial artist, a bit of a daredevil. Tell us a bit about performing with him, working with Jack. Yeah,
that was in Calgary at the Stampede Pavilion, and we were interacting in some tag team matches in there. Yeah, he's crazy. Like, he's Gumby. I was called Gumby in high school and junior high, but like, he's Gumby, man. Like, the way he bends and stuff is insane. He's a hell of an athlete. No, it was great working with him. And once again, he was impressed after everything was said and done. And when I had Facebook at the time, he like put me over like follow this guy, follow his Facebook page, blah blah blah. So no, it's just another feather in the cap. It's great when you work with just incredible athletes. I can't take anything away from them.
Let's end on a couple of fun stories now, then, because you gave me a bit of information, a bit of a heads up on this, and it reminded me of a story that Edge told in his book. And from probably, I don't know, I think this story probably happened in the early 90s or early to mid 90s. I think he recorded it was himself and Christian and maybe Rhino in this car going along the infamous Northern Death Tours across the treacherous winter conditions, driving over frozen lakes. And you had a very similar journey, very similar experience yourself, didn't you? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, yeah, I've done the Northern Death Tour twice for the infamous Tony Condello, who's old school as it gets. He's torpedoed Tony Condello back in like the 60s. He helped promote with Vern Gagne, the AWA. He brought it to Manitoba. But yeah, that was like my first time on the road, first time, touring ever was the Northern Death Tour. And it is a bit of a badge of honor to do those in Canada because the only time of the month you can do them is February, where it's the coldest. You got to wait for the lakes to freeze so you can drive across them and get to these reserves where you perform at these schools. It's very similar to the holiday camp circuit here in the UK, except minus the treacherous conditions and life and death experiences.
Death-defying feats to get from one place to another. Yeah,
it's like family shows, lots of kids, good reps. You're working twice a night, 4 or 5 times a week, But yeah, it's like minus 50 or colder. You're driving over frozen lakes, and it's just there's no cell reception. You're in the middle of nowhere. The vehicle's getting stuck in the snow at least 3 to 5 times during this whole trip. It's about 3 weeks long, maybe longer. But it's a badge of honor. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I thought it was awesome. Just doing what I love to do, wrestling, learning. I was working with Chichi Cruz all the time on those tours, just learning from a 20-year vet like him. And it's awesome. I recommend it, honestly, for just an adventure. Say that you did it. It's great for up-and-coming wrestlers like a Brandon Lee and a Nathan Angel. And it's good for veteran wrestlers to get your reps in and make some good money, So I recommend it. I've done it twice, and I would like to do it for a third time when I go back to Canada, actually.
And you lived to tell the tale.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. You live to tell the tale. But another fun story now. Episode 200 of Wrestling with Johners, I had the Awakening, formerly the Ascension, Big Con and Vic the Space Lord, and you're kind of good friends and very familiar with Vic, or Victor, as he was known back in them days. You have quite an interesting story. I think Dan Patterson, ASW South student, alluded to it earlier in his question. Something to do with a car flipping over or rolling over Rick Victor and yourself. Tell us about it.
Okay, so it's 2010. We're doing some TV tapings in Manitoba. So where we're from, and he wrestled as Apocalypse, APOC, we called him, Rick Victor. So APOC, myself, and another wrestler, Alex Plexus, were booked in Manitoba. So in Canada in general, everything's very spread out. We're road warriors. We drive, 12, 14 hours to get to a show sometimes. And this one was a good 14-hour trip from Calgary to Winnipeg, Manitoba. So we do the TV tapings there, and we decide we're not going to, get the hotel the promoter offered us. We need to get back because we had another show in Calgary the next night. And so we had to get back, drive 12, 14 hours that night. And I'm driving. It's middle of the night, like 2, 3 in the morning, maybe actually later, 4 or 5. And I'm starting to doze off. I'm getting tired. So I ask Alex Plexus, can you drive? Like, I'm starting to fall asleep here. And he reluctantly does it, and he's tired himself. This is so dumb. We should have just pulled over and rested for a while. But he gets in, starts driving, and I go in the back. APOC is in the passenger side. And within maybe a half hour, I remember just being like half asleep and just hearing the vehicle hit this gravel, like, and I knew right away we were in big, big trouble. And I had just enough time to go, oh, fuck. And then sure enough, it was like a spin cycle. like you're in like a dryer and a spin cycle. Like I just remember just like dun, 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 dun. We rolled. We're in a Sunfire, a blue Sunfire, small vehicle. We rolled about the half a length of a football field into the field there in Saskatchewan at the time, and we landed upright miraculously. I don't know how. So lucky, man. So damn lucky. And to add everything onto this, APOC is in the passenger side. He's not wearing a seatbelt, and he likes to ride with the window down and his foot sticking out. He's just lounging. And he told me he could feel his foot every time we rolled. Ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. I found his shoe. He was missing his shoe. I found it like 100 feet away from the car. Like it flew. And he's lucky he didn't lose his leg, his foot. Like he was pretty banged up, but he was okay. Plexus was bleeding from the head. I didn't have anything wrong, to be honest. I was so lucky. So I thought. So I'll never forget. We landed upright. Boom, 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 and there was a split second of like, I just felt super dizzy, but the adrenaline and everything, I just like shook it off within like a second. And I was like, is everyone okay? How's everyone doing? I like unbuckled my seatbelt and was checking on everyone, got out of the car. So I kind of like no-sold it and just like ignored it. And all I had was a little bump behind my ear here. That was it. And man, the trunk was exploded. All our bags were wrecked. There was Kamikaze promo pictures scattered all over this field everywhere. It was a mess, man. But we're so damn lucky. And I'm just gathering everything up and trying to gather our bearings. And this car pulls up and the sun's starting to come up now. And it's just by the grace of God, these people that pulled over to help us were on their way to their first aid course. And the second car that pulled up to help us was their instructor to their first aid medical course. So it was just like a grace from God that these people were there. And then the ambulance finally shows up and we all get in the ambulance and they drive us to the hospital. And I'll never forget, this is like straight out of the movies. The guy's like checking our blood pressure with our arms, and APOC and I got some big arms on us. And he's like checking and he looks at both of us and he's like, who are you guys? Like, it's just like one of those things. Like we just like stood out, just these jacked wrestlers, and yeah, we're so lucky. We ended up making it to Calgary. APOC just went home. He's like, screw this. Like he was banged up pretty good. He's like, I'm not working the show. And rightfully so. He's the smartest out of all of us. Plexus and I show up thinking we're still going to wrestle. And Lance Storm, who was the booker at the time, he was like, no way. He's like, no, you guys just take it easy, rest. But like, I was ready to go. But in retrospect, probably for the best that I did not, because a whole month later to the day, a month later, I had the most craziest migraine, most extreme headache, super light sensitive to light. Like it all caught up to me a month later. I had to go to the hospital. I had like post-concussion syndrome, is what we called it. I actually had to get a brain scan. That was the first time I ever had a brain scan in my life. Hopefully the last. Everything checked out was okay. But it was just one of those things that took like a whole month for it to catch up to me. Like I said, all I had was like a little bump behind my ear. That was it. But it's just crazy how the body works sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
A whole month later, I was hurting. Like terrible headaches for a good week or so. I was messed up. But yeah. Very lucky, man. That was a crazy story. I'll have to send some pictures of the car. I have some pictures of the car. It's a mess. You couldn't believe that we made it out of there as lucky as we did.
And it was lucky that Rick Victor kind of survived with both of his feet intact. How does that even happen?
No seatbelts. It was crazy. He was just sleeping, just trying to be more comfortable, but insane.
Brilliant.
My tag partner, Eclipse, was supposed to ride with us back. He came with us, actually. I totally forgot. And he decided to stay in Winnipeg with a lady friend of his for a couple extra days. And I always think, like, if he came with us, maybe he would have been not so lucky, maybe, it was just by the grace of God, he wasn't meant to be in that car with us,
That's it. Somebody was looking down on you that day. Right. Somebody was looking down on you. Now, we have had a few other questions, and I'm going to read them out at the very end of this show. But I just want to quickly look at some of your accolades and some of your accomplishments over your, illustrious 19-year career. So talk us through some of these, because there you are with some guys there picking up awards. Obviously, we spoke about the tag team championships. And there you are with some beautiful hardware,
There she is.
rocking all the belts there for sure. And looking pretty fine with all of the silverware. But you have been able to pick up some awards, some accomplishments, and some titles in your illustrious career. Talk to us about some of them, because you must be very proud of some of the things you have been able to achieve.
Yeah, 100%. I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. I have the ability, the intuition to just never stop learning and to improve, and just always get better. Because you never perfect this. You can always improve. You never know it all in this sport. So that's the mentality you have to stay. You got to stay humble and low to the ground, nose to the ground, and grind. And I've just tried to do that. The Monster Pro Wrestling Tag Team Championships with Eclipse, the Brothers in Flight, the PWA Cruiserweight Championship. I actually was never defeated for that belt. I had to forfeit it when I had my knee injury. I was undefeated with that belt.
That could be it there.
Yep, that's it there. Yep.
That's the
It was
one.
a hard fought battle. That's when I won it. Got sliced open good. Nice little hardway gash there. Bled for 2 days. I should have got stitches, but
wow.
didn't. I'd wake up in the morning, my pillow would be smattered with blood. It would just leak. So I should have got stitches, but it just young and dumb,
And then, those three at the same time. Look at that.
Yeah, this was crazy. The stars just aligned with this one. I won the High Impact Wrestling Provincial Championship, the one around my waist. And then I was the Real Canadian Wrestling Mid-Heavyweight Champion at the same time. And then I defeated Johnny Devine of TNA. We had like a 9-month feud against one another for that Commonwealth Championship, the one with the red outline. I beat him in a British rounds match, of all things.
Wow.
10 rounds. And it was the longest match I ever had. It was like an hour long. And I finally beat him after 9 months of him just giving me hell. It was a very cool moment. But yeah, just to hold all 3 belts was pretty special. It was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's jump to some questions and let's see who's been in touch. Okay, Adam Mansfield again. This is an interesting question, but what's been your favorite British meal? Have you kind of enjoyed some British delicacies since you've been over here?
Yeah, I'd say like the breakfast here is awesome, like a fried breakfast.
Oh yes, my favorite.
Kobe Carvery, is it called?
Toby Carvery, yeah.
Adam Mansfield put that over so hard to me. He's like, you gotta do this. And like that was the ultimate. I think that was one of the top-notch ones I've had. Like just you get to pick and choose what you need and want. What was it? Toad in the Hole is very good.
My favorite. So like a batter with sausages inside. Yes. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, delicious. Yeah. Even better with gravy, bit of mashed potato on the side. You can't beat that.
Definitely. Had like the suppers you guys have. A roast dinner. I've had a homemade roast dinner and one at a restaurant, and both were just fantastic. Like so
the best. Yeah. Let's have a look. We got ASW South student Megan been in touch again. Any advice that you might be able to offer Megan? I think Megan's a fairly new trainee trying to find herself as a performer, kind of master some of the basics. So developing at quite a pace, I understand. But any kind of, I'm sure all pro wrestlers have been at the same stage that Megan's at currently. Any advice that you can offer Megan?
I would say don't give up. If this is something you're serious about and love, Rome wasn't built in one day. That's what my first trainer, Chichi Cruz, would tell me. It takes time. It takes years to piece things together, throwing things to the wall and seeing what sticks, what works for you. But just don't get discouraged. Don't give up. You can never stop learning, ever. And you're in good hands at the school, the ASW school.
100%.
But just keep on trucking along, grinding along, working out. Physical fitness is important. Cardio conditioning is important. But there'll be times you get discouraged, but just don't give up. Keep trucking along, Megan. It's hard. This isn't meant for everyone, but if you're serious and you love it, there's a spot. There's somewhere for you in the professional wrestling world. If you work hard enough, there's something out there for you for sure.
Absolutely. And one thing I do know about Megan is she's got the passion, she's got the desire. She loves professional wrestling and she seems to be enjoying the training, which is really cool.
She's a
Some more
sweetheart.
questions that came in before we went live from friend of the show, Richie again. Are there any wrestling promotions that are still on your bucket list of groups you'd like to work for? So whether that be UK, European, North American or Canadian, and any wrestling groups that you haven't performed for that you'd like to?
Well, I think I'm at a point in my life where I know there is somewhere in the professional wrestling world where there's a spot for me there somewhere. I don't know where. I'm on the search right now, trying to find where that is, where I can make some money and get some security for myself and my family. There's somewhere out there. There is. I know I have enough to contribute with my passion, my look. I feel being put on a poster or even on television, I turn heads. I make the casual fan, people that aren't even fans, flipping through the channels. I think I can make them stop and be like, what is this? Who is that guy? You know what I mean? With my promos and stuff like that and my work in the ring, I feel there is somewhere out there for me. I'm on the search for it now. I want to go to Japan one day. I'd like to go to Mexico, learn that style. I'm definitely coming back here again. This is
it's got to happen.
Unbelievable experience. And at least I'll have some contacts the second round. I'll know some people instead of just coming in the dark my first round. But like I was saying, you got to just jump into the unknown sometimes and do it. You got to have some guts, you know? So, but no, there's somewhere out there, I believe it, in Canada, the States, in one of the big promotions somewhere, WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, Major League Wrestling, Progress Wrestling, you know, CMML, AAA, New Japan, Michinoku Pro, somewhere out there I can contribute. I can put asses in the seats. I can sell tickets and I can make said promotion, make some money and get some viewership. I truly believe that there's somewhere out there for me.
Kamikaze is the real deal. One more picture I want to flash up and add a bit of context to this. You got like a Bible there, my friend. That's what you call the book, isn't it? And I called you a student of the game, a bit of a wrestling historian. And you're not just, this daredevil acrobat that a lot of people might have you labeled as. You are, you're a student of the game. You love many different styles of pro wrestling, and you study and you break matches down in slow motion. Tell us a bit about that book, and do you still use that book? Do you still kind of add to it?
Yes, actually, I'm a fool for not bringing it with me, but I do have pen and paper still. I'm still taking notes and stuff like that. I'll add it to the book when I get home. But no, that thing, I started that in 2008 when I had my knee surgery. When I finally got my knee surgery and I was laid up, I was just studying wrestling tapes and DVDs, and I just started taking notes. It started with just technical wrestling, chain wrestling, tech, and then it just snowballed into everything from just maneuvers, standing from behind on the mat, and then turn it into like cutoffs and heel work, doing nasty heel cutoffs, heel finishes, all it was such a wide variety of stuff. I had to get like little dividers and divide it into categories and stuff, promos, merchandise. And everyone should be doing this, if you're serious about this and love it, maybe in a different way, but you should be students of the game to this. Like, you can never stop learning, and it's great to reference later on in the future. Just all these little ideas and things in your back pocket. You just always will have something to contribute. It's a great thing.
Absolutely. And with all that knowledge and with the years of experience under your belt and the book and all the many promotions you've worked for, people you've worked with, have you ever thought of maybe becoming more of a full-time coach yourself? Or maybe is that something that you'd consider for the future? Maybe opening up your own wrestling school and becoming a coach? Well,
you know what? Joel Redman inspires me, the way he's doing everything right now. And that he's winding down a bit, being more with his family. Running the school and just giving back. I've always tried to give back in locker rooms, but I think that probably will be the end game for me. I still have something left, I feel, and there's still some gas in the tank, but I think in due time that will be the end game for me, to open up my own wrestling school. I probably will bring back CMF wrestling as a real professional thing and run shows as well.
That would be awesome.
And, give back, because Joel, I can't say enough good things about him. Like, he goes out of his way. If he sees you're serious and you're good and you're trying hard, he's going to go out of his way to help you get booked and on different shows. And And I just was very inspired by that. And I want to give back in that same way, have my own school, and say a wrestler comes and trains with me for a while, like I'll go out of my way if he's good enough to like get him booked and get him exposure and help him out the way he's helping me and Nathan Angel and Brandon Lee and so many others. It's inspiring seeing what Joel's doing. I would steal that blueprint from him for sure. For sure.
100%. And just a quick reminder of my up and coming interviews, and the month of October just around the corner, and I've got 7 fabulous guests that will be joining me soon. Starting next Monday, as I mentioned, Jordan Sparks will be joining me on the 2nd of October. On the 9th of October, I've got Johnny Laquasto, former WWE 205 Live commentator and now stand-up comedian. Johnny will be joining me on the 9th of October to talk to me all about his WWE career, his love for pro wrestling, and his stand-up comedy career. I got Shah Samuels, the current Rev Pro British undisputed lightweight champion, cruiserweight champion. Unless he's lost the championship recently, he's still holding that bout. On the 11th of October, Shah will be joining me live on the show. On the 17th, I've got JJ Gale joining me live on Wrestling with Johners. And the very next day, I've got Mila Schmidt. She'll be joining me. And that's a rescheduled interview from earlier this month. And of course, Mila will be joining me on the 18th. On the 24th of October, I've got Ivy. And on the 27th, I've got Ruby Manitoba, and much like Jordan, she's just returned to the UK from 3 months of training with Tom Pritchard. So 7 tremendous interviews live in the month of October on Wrestling with Johners. And of course, Jordan will be my next interview Monday, the 2nd of October, 8 p.m. UK time, live with Wrestling with Johners. But as we wind down now, Kamikaze, the crazy mofo, if any of my fans, viewers, listeners wants to get in touch, wants to reach out, wants to say hi to you on social media, or maybe learn more about you, or maybe take a little trip over to a YouTube channel, Cam, where can they do so? And I do have a little ticker running along the bottom of the screen right now.
So it's pretty simple. I keep it the same. So it's Kaze CMF for life, crazy mofo for life, but KAZE CMF for life. So that's Instagram at Kaze CMF for life, or youtube.com/Kaze CMF for life. KAZE CMF, the number 4, life. Crazy mofo for life.
There we go. But Kamikaze, you've been an awesome guest on Wrestling with Johners, episode 321. It's been an absolute delight learning about you, taking a deep dive, talking about your career and what the future holds. But Kamikaze, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And a quick shout out to Niwa, Brandon Lee, Nathan Angel, Bullet, Joel Redman, and the man himself, James Mason, Adam Mansfield, Justin Richards, so many others that I'm missing that put me in the right direction with the right people. Thank you so much. And I'm so thankful to be here, and my experiences have been great. I'm definitely coming back. I'm coming back.
It's been a pleasure having you on these UK shores. But Kamikaze, safe travels, and we'll see you again soon, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you very much.